changing lives.
Hello and good evening, wonderful viewers. I'm excited to have you join us for another insightful episode on the Consulting Room, which comes to you live from the studios of Hope Channel, Ghana. We come to you every Monday from 8 to 9 p.m. and we bring you the best, all the health topics you need to know to stay updated and healthy. This is the Consulting Room. I'm Dr. Na Ayikako-Inin. Tonight we have another interesting topic for you. We're talking about managing occupational and lifestyle diseases. We talk a lot about lifestyle diseases, but not so much occupational diseases. What are they and what do we need to know about it? Tonight we're going to know more than enough on occupational health diseases and lifestyle diseases. How do we make sure that our choices we are making daily are not taking us closer to the grave? And we have in the studio the professionals to tell us all about it. So with me, I have Mr. Damwa Emmanuel Nyako, who is the safety man.
Yeah.
He's the director of the Safety Campaign Ghana and also a member of the Ghana International Safety and Environmental Professionals. And then also we have Dr. Maxwell Atendana, who is a pediatrician at the 37 Military Hospital, yes. Also a member of the Ghana Institute of Safety and Environmental Professionals. So today is all about safety.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're both very welcome. Thank you for joining us on the Consulting Room.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Just a reminder to our viewers, we are live on Facebook and YouTube. You can share the link for others to watch as well. And then we'd also like to hear from you, so send in your comments and questions. Today we're diving right into the show. So I'll come to Mr. Damwa.
Yes.
Welcome again.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we're
Yes.
happy to have you. So the safety campaign, what's that all about?
All right. So Safety Campaign Ghana is an initiative where we are encouraging or we want to promote more occupational and public safety awareness. So it's a nationwide something where currently we are doing more trainings or seminars, virtual ones for health and safety. And also we provide guidance and counseling to young HSC practitioners who want to veer into the profession of health and safety. And we also do some corporate trainings for corporate Ghana as well. So basically that is what the Safety Campaign Ghana is about.
Okay, so it's an NGO?
It's a personal initiative or something of that sort. I wouldn't say NGO. Let's say an initiative, a public health or safety initiative,
Okay.
with the focus of promoting occupational health and safety.
So who can join?
Anyone passionate about promoting workplace safety, home, wherever that you find yourself, because there are hazards all over.
Yeah, oh, right. So you mentioned hazard. I was going to ask you questions on that. So since you brought it up already, I think you start with telling us what are hazards, what are risks, and occupational diseases overall. What are they?
All right. So when we talk about hazards, it is the first son, in terms, like a son, a daughter, brother. I want to say their family. So the first fruit of that family is hazards. The brother is risks, and then we can step into occupational diseases. So let's say hazard. Hazard is anything or the inherent property of a substance that can cause harm, injury, or illness. So anything at all that can cause damage or harm to you. For the purpose of the discussion, let's say it's hazard. Now, risk is the likelihood or the probability of the hazard that we've identified, of the hazardous events occurring. That is where we talk about risk. And then when it happens, what is the impact? What is the effect of it? So, for example, there's a billboard by the roadside. The likelihood or the probability that the billboard will collapse is the risk. And then when it collapses, will it fall on a human being? Will it fall on a vehicle? When it falls on a vehicle, what is the effect or impact on the occupants of the vehicle? What is the effect on the vehicle itself? And then human beings, when it follows on you, what is the effect? Another example could be snake. Let's say snake. Most of us, we are afraid of snake. So let's say snake is a hazard, but then the risk is when the snake bites you.
Okay.
If it's not biting or if it's not posing any risk or threat, you cannot say it's risk. In that form, its inherent nature becomes the hazard. Another example for our listeners to really understand this conversation is any structure, or let's say a ceiling fan. When it's working and then the motor is rotating and all that, it's hazardous in nature. But then the risk is when the blades falls off or the ceiling fan drops and probably hit someone or cut someone. I'm sure with these 3 examples, my listeners or my viewers would be able to follow this conversation.
Yeah.
Now back into the occupational diseases. Once you've understood hazards, we've understood risks. Occupational diseases are basically the various illnesses or diseases or medical conditions that are associated with a particular job that one undertakes, or your occupation. The very jobs you undertake, the disease that comes alongside with it is your occupational disease.
Okay.
You get it. So for example, I work in a sawmill. I work at Enikenika where we blend, the local place where we blend maize, tomatoes, even this fufu blending machines.
Yeah.
It produces so much noise. And so people there are exposed to noise-induced hearing loss. In the long-term effect, when you're exposed to noise of over 85 decibels, that is the threshold, you are tempted or you are likely to suffer noise-induced hearing loss. And so that becomes your occupational disease. You get it? They are totally different from lifestyle diseases. I'm sure doctor will be talking much about that. But from the health and safety side, these are purely occupational disease as far as hazards and risks are concerned.
Okay. So, like in the hospital, we diagnose illnesses.
Sure.
Is there a method or way in which you diagnose occupational diseases?
Yes. For us, we normally rely on medical policies.
Okay.
When it comes to health and safety, we have medical surveillance policy or a health policy. It talks about pre-employment medicals. It talks about periodic medicals. And it talks about exit medicals. These are the 3 ways you can diagnose occupational disease of an employee. So prior to your engagement of the employee, you need to know their health status. So you do spirometry for them to check your lungs to see if you can really breathe well. Because if you're in a mining sector or a construction sector, there are definitely a lot of dust around. And so if you have this asthma and pulmonary disease and lung disease, you might not be able to work in that side. So the occupational health physician will tell your manager that, look, your colleague or the one they're going to engage cannot work in such sector because when you do spirometry, his lungs and all that, from there. We also do audiology to test your hearing ability. Okay. So if you're going to work in a place where there are so many earth-moving equipment, machinery, some of them will be making noise from movement. When some of them are going on reverse, they have this alarm. We also have some that we call tramming alarm. Okay. All these are noise that comes from your equipment. Again, if your concrete mixer is working, so much noise. If somebody is doing grinding, somebody is doing cutting on the metals at the construction site, so much noise. So the audiologist will determine all these things as far as your audiometry test is concerned. And they also do some dermatitis checks for your skin. They trace your family history. If there are some genetic disease, some communicable disease and all that. And then the periodic medicals has to do with when you proceed on leave and you come back. Okay. We want to know that the state in which you were before you proceeded on the leave, are you with the same state? Are you in the same state coming back to work? Because the hazards are waiting for you. And it also gives the chance for the occupational health doctor to pick up some medical conditions that are arising and to put quick or remedies in place to mitigate it. And sometimes they also have this health data that they do for training and all that. And of course, the exit medicals will be the last one. You engage the person through pre-employment medicals. The person went on leave and you did periodic medicals. Now, when the person is leaving the company, he resigns and says, I'm not going to work again. The letter comes to the safety department. We say, okay, we will schedule you for an exit medical, where will be checked that all the conditions that you came to work with, you came and you could hear things properly. You came and you could see things properly. You came and you had 2 hands. 2 hands, 10 fingers. You came and then your lungs and everything was intact. Are you living with the same condition? Are you exiting our company with the same condition? Or now, because of our impact, or because of activities, you are suffering any side effect, that is occupational disease, then we can talk about claims, compensation, and all that. So all in all, this is the introductory part to our discussion this evening.
Okay, yeah, so I was coming to that. So the workplace has actually had an impact on you. What do you do? How do you report it? Do you report it to anyone? Or maybe before that, are there any policies actually governing the medicals you're talking about to ensure that employers actually do them?
Yes.
They are?
Yes. Every company ascribed to a particular health and safety policy, like you said. And so policies expresses the company's intent in terms of managing occupational health and safety. Now, beyond the policy, we have the procedures. You would have your medical procedure. You would have your pre-employment procedure. You would have your periodic medical procedure and all that. And so all these procedures would align or instruct you as to what to do at a particular time. So there are regulations and there are policies. And you also have your external regulators who normally comes around to audit you to see how best you are doing it. For example, whenever they come for audit at your work environment, the first thing that they check is your medical records. So did your employees go through some form of medical screening? Yes, and most companies do these days, they do, because they're all afraid of health and safety implications as far as compensation and then claims are concerned. So there is regulation and policies.
Yes, so now to the claims or reporting. Who do we report to if you've suffered some harm to yourself doing your work?
All right, so maybe I'll do more of the occupational health and safety, and Doc will do that of the hospital or medical aspect for us. So in health and safety, or let's say in any work environment, whether construction, mining, manufacturing, pharmaceutical, wherever you find yourself, if an incident happens, immediately report to your line manager or your leading hand or your supervisor. I mean, which these rules, whoever is your immediate supervisor, you report to the person. Beyond that, they would now escalate to your health and safety officer or your health and safety rep or your health and safety manager. These are the very people that you are supposed to report to when an incident happens. We encourage people to report incidents, not only incidents, but near misses. The very things that we think they are trivial, the very things, oh, this one there, it's a near miss. It was, I just slipped. Meanwhile, there was a leakage of chemical on the floor, which should have been cleaned, but somebody didn't clean, and you slipped on it, and you were lucky. We say something in safety that a near miss reported today is an accident prevented tomorrow. And so if you report every near miss, I mean all incidents, we will put up a comprehensive data and see where our hazards and our loopholes are, and probably look at it in a general perspective and put some control measures in place. So we're encouraging everyone by this very question to report every incident and accident, no matter how small or how trivial it is.
So how can the education of workers and training better improve their health at work, or even prevent these near misses or the actual problems?
Good. So let's say the employee is assigned to a particular task. Prior to the commencement of this very task, you will be going through, or you would go through what we call toolbox talk. Some companies also call it induction. Some also call it like orientation. So you'll be oriented before you go and undertake that very task. Now, prior to you carrying out that very task, you do a risk assessment. All these are forms of training on the job, engagement, and all that, interventions and all that. So risk assessment will tell you the kind of job that you are going to do. You'll be trained on it, so you'll have the knowledge about your hazards. Now, when you understand the risk itself, the job sequence or the job procedure, or the main activity that you're going to do, you have to identify your hazards, like I said. You identify your risks. And you put in first controls. So what are controls? Controls are basically measures or remedies that are put in place to either eliminate every hazard that we see at the work environment, or to reduce them to the barest minimum. So let's say there's so much noise. We cannot eliminate the noise, but we need to put on ear plugs or ear muff just to reduce the impact of that noise to us. And so in that case, your ear plugs or your ear muff becomes your control measure. So when you put in your first controls, you look at the risks. Are the risks still prevailing? Be like, okay, the noise, even after putting on the ear plugs and the ear muff, the noise is still there. Then probably we need to carry out our activity far away from the noise. That could also be a control measure for you. And then in terms of education and awareness, we also do safety trainings. We do safety committee there, but we also do safety reps meeting and all that. All these are form of engaging the employee, creating awareness about workplace hazards, prevailing risks. And once you understand them, by impulse, you might not be doing some of the unsafe acts and unsafe practices that will lead to accidents at the workplace.
Okay. There's a lot of stresses and strains in the workplace. How do we ensure that we are reducing the risk of, say, musculoskeletal disorders to the workers?
Yeah, so this has to do with ergonomics. Now, basically, when you talk about ergonomics, it has to do with the relationship between the worker and then the work environment. Okay. And so let's say, previously we didn't have this adjustable chair where you can just lift it and you go down or pull it up and all that. We had this fixed chair, and then you have your table in front of you, and then you just have to adjust yourself. And so there was so much stress-related illnesses as far as the musculoskeletal diseases are concerned. Yeah. And so by intervention of health and safety practices and continual improvements, we have these adjustable chairs. Now, we don't want people to lift heavy loads by 1, 2, 3, hold here. No, there's a procedure. There's a manual handling procedure that tells you how to lift. Okay. You rest on your toes and all that. All these are safety interventions that has to do with managing musculoskeletal diseases. Again, we don't want to encourage repetitive work actions. We encourage regular breaks. People should have a break. And so if you are doing your risk assessment first, you would even have to consider fatigue. So as and when people get tired, after every 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes per procedure, give the employees break and let them have some rest. They will freshen up, come back to the job, and they can come and continue, because we don't want them to be exposed to this musculoskeletal diseases, the tendons and all that. So basically, these are some of the measures that we have in place from the health and safety side to manage musculoskeletal diseases. Okay.
I think sometimes that becomes a little difficult because people take undue advantage of the breaks.
You see, for the employee, whatever that you do, they always want to have their freedom. So it's up to the supervisors to ensure, even health and safety, PPEs, for example, are not comfortable for everyone. They will tell you, yeah, after the most safety and all that. And so employees are never comfortable with whatever you want them to do. No. So you have to streamline their operation. You have to make sure you are on them 24/7. Not to police them, but ensuring that everyone that comes to work safe goes home to their family and their loved ones safe. That is why we do all what we are doing at the workplace as health and safety practitioners.
Okay. So since you mentioned PPEs, there are people who have been given the PPEs but are not using them in their line of work. If something happens in that regard, what's the way forward?
I don't know about the health side, but for health and safety at the most of the corporate settings or the work environment, you cannot say you know your PPE, but then of course we have stubborn ones. Of course, people wouldn't wear and all that, or they would, for example, nose masks. The area is a dusty environment. They will hang their nose mask until they see the safety manager coming. Until they see me, hey, safety elbow, then people begin to do the right thing. But then when there are continuous training, engagements, interventions, people begin to understand why they need to work safe. Now, behavioral-based safety comes in. That is where people appreciate the fact that they need to work safe because they've been trained to do the best practice. They've been trained to practice only safe acts and ignore or do away with unsafe acts that might cause incidents at the workplace. Yeah. You get it? And so if they give you PP, you not wearing it will be the worst case scenario, but compliance level is higher for most of the jurisdictions. But then if you don't wear it and something happens to you, you might not get any compensation or claim from your employer. That one I can say it confidently.
Okay, still talking about the stress workers go through. How do organizations ensure that they have a work-life balance to reduce the stress? So
I think for the various classes of hazards, this falls under the psychosocial hazard. That's the classification for these very hazards. Okay. And listeners should just remember that we said hazard is anything that has the potential to cause harm or damage or injury or even illness. And so you being under the category of psychosocial hazards, for your question as to the stress-related or having a work-life balance, you know, most work settings, we have this cliques, group, If you don't belong to our clan, our group, our association, even when there's promotion, they will take you out. We have something we call elimination by rough tactics. They will find every way to eliminate you because you don't belong to them. There can be an advert for someone to represent the company, outside Ghana. But because you don't belong to their clan, you will not get there. Promotion, they will sideline you. All these, gossips, favoritism, people have ways of getting favor from their bosses and all that. Social isolation. Because you are not part of us, you don't even belong here in the office. The work environment is not even acceptable enough for you to work in. There are so many people. I wouldn't want to use jealousy because it does not exist in health and safety. But then the environment is not a thriving one. It's not a safe or healthy working environment. So in this case, we normally promote work-life balance in the sense that we manage your roster. So most people do 5-2, 5 working days, 2 days off. For those of us in the government sector or the corporate sector, Monday to Friday. And then we take break on Saturday and Sunday. In the mining and those who do night shifts for the manufacturing, pharmaceuticals and offshore and all that, they also have a roster of 6-3. Okay. 6 days on, 3 days off. Some also do 12-8, 12 days on, 8 days off. And some do 18-10. So as in the number of days that you want, you can accumulate your off days. But then what we don't encourage is lengthy, work whilst, your office piling and all that. It reduces your, productivity, and then it brings some sort of mental health on you as an employee. And so for your weekends, that is where the issue is. Or your off days, you're supposed to have enough time for yourself. Some people are too busy. They don't even want to enjoy their off days. But we are saying that off days are periods where you're supposed to refresh yourself, get some new energy, come to the workplace with some smiles. People come to work on Monday and they are still angry. You ask them, why, what's happening? I'll be like, my weekend was bad. Meanwhile, weekends are so, you can take the family out, prepare some nice jollof or fried rice, go to the beach, or if there are games at your area, if you don't have sea at your community, if they are playing a football match, you can go there, watch. If they are doing any social gathering, you can even go to church. As for Adventists, Saturday we are there, Sunday there's Bible studies, Monday there's women ministry and youth, Tuesday there's choir going on, Wednesday prayers, Thursday choir, Friday AY, is also there, Sabbath services there. So there are a whole lot of activities lined up for you to manage both your social and then psychological life. And so these are ways we can use to manage it. And I'll touch briefly on the office politics perspective for the managing psychosocial hazards. The line managers listening, the supervisors listening, the managers, please, let's not, suppress our subordinates. Let's give them an enabling environment. Look, people have ideas. People have so much in them that they can put to the table. There is so much that we can achieve when there is teamwork. We shouldn't sideline them. We shouldn't suppress them. Let's create that enabling environment for them. Let's do away with all cliques and factions and groups and all that. They wouldn't help us.
Thank you so much. So let me go to Dr. Tendana now. You are in the hospital setting. I believe there are a lot of health hazards there. In your experience, what are some of the common ones that you see?
Thank you very much. I think a lot has been said already about the hazards and the risk. So when you come to the hospital settings, as he mentioned, almost everything within our environment is a hazard. So once you live in a particular environment, anything that you find around is capable of causing harm. Then the likelihood of the thing now causing harm becomes a risk. So in the hospital settings, we have different departments within the hospital. So depending on the area you find yourself, then you are exposed to different hazards. So let's take those who are actually involved in the clinical work. So those who are involved in taking care of patients and all those things, they get into contact with body fluids, that's blood, and a whole lot of things. And they are also exposed to sharp objects like needles. All those things are there's hazards to the people working in that particular environment. And they are capable of causing all of these forms of diseases and then there's an illnesses. And delving into the risk, as we mentioned, we would quickly briefly look at some of the lifestyle diseases that we often experience.
Yeah.
So with the lifestyle diseases, they are mostly the conditions that are as a result of our day-to-day activities and our behaviors. So either you are not doing something well or you are not doing something right.
Yeah.
Let me put it that way. And medically, we have some risk factors that are fixed. You can't change them. And there are others that you can actually change. So those ones are usually called the modifiable ones, and then we have the non-modifiable forms of risk. So for an example, diseases that are related to our lifestyle, so we can have maybe hypertension, we can also have diabetes, we have cancers, we can even have strokes. So most of these diseases, you as an individual, you would have some risks that you can't modify. And those risks are maybe your age. We know certain diseases are basically for the aged, like this hypertension. So as you age, your risk of developing hypertension is higher. Those ones you can't change. Genetics, there are some people, they are family as inherent with hypertension or diabetes. Maybe their grandfather developed diabetes, and then their father, and then they also are in a pipeline of developing it. And then we can also talk about race, whether black or white. Those are fixed. We can't change them as a person. But the modifiable ones are the ones that basically we are usually so much interested in trying to see how we can mitigate them. So those risks are usually, let's say, sedentary lifestyle. Those who are not usually involved in any activities. So you wake up in the morning, you do nothing, you go straight into your car, you drive, you are in the office, you are sort of like living a very sedentary lifestyle. So you are capable of developing certain diseases out of it, like diabetes, you can develop out of it, because if you live such a life, you are capable of becoming an obese person, which this increases your risk of developing hypertension and even diabetes as well. People also are involved in eating very unhealthy diets. These days we often see a lot of adverts about burgers, pizzas, and all that. I always say, usually in Europe, very cheap food are the junk ones. But when you come to Africa, our junk foods are rather very expensive.
Doc, you didn't mention Indomie. I don't know if Indomie is Indomie part, but I need to get that clarification as well. That's part of the junk food. Indomie, sometimes, you know.
So it actually depends on how you prepare it. You know, there are some, they have a little bit of the Indomie, which is mostly this in carbohydrates. Then they add some vegetables and other things. So how you prepare it is the most important thing. So you ensure that your diet is balanced. You need to have a balanced diet. Then it prevents you from developing all sorts of other diseases. You can develop diabetes out of it, obesity, and you can even get stroke out of all these things. And then we have people who smoke. And smoking is actually linked to so many diseases, especially cancers. You can develop any cancer of any part of your body once you smoke. And then this excessive intake of alcohol can lead to chronic liver diseases. So these are some of the lifestyle diseases and then the risk that are involved in developing them. Yes, yes.
Is there any benefit of drinking water when we're talking about lifestyle diseases?
Oh yes, water, they say water is life.
Yeah.
And being in Africa, we all know the weather in Africa is, we are in the tropical, so we tend to lose some water through a lot of things that we do. So in actual fact, the best is for you to remain hydrated. Once you are this hydrated, then you can be rest assured that almost every part of your system would work well. Your kidneys would work well, and then you'll be rest assured that you would have a very smooth, moist skin as well. And it will actually prevent you from developing all sorts of other diseases.
Yeah. So you mentioned a sedentary lifestyle. Are there any recommended guidelines for physical activity? How much is too much, or how much do we need?
So when it comes to physical activities, yes, there are some guidelines we could use. But the first thing I need to let viewers understand is most of these physical activity guidelines are age-based. And then in some instances, they're actually based on your health status. So in the first place, you need to know your health status before you can even start thinking of the kind of this activity that you need to do. So it is advised that you speak to your doctor, and then based on what you have, he might be able to recommend you to do certain things. But there are some general things that you could actually use to guide you. So for instance, we would advise in a week, if you're able to at least do some moderate exercises. Let's say you spend at least, let's say 150 minutes doing some moderate exercises within a week. So you can divide that, either you do 4 to 5 times within a week, then as mentioned, at least even if you are working, you work 5 days, you take a break. So if you are also having an exercise, you need to make sure that you have breaks with the exercises that you do. And there are a lot of different exercises we can actually do, which we classify them as very moderate. So you can do cycling, brisk walking, skipping is also there, which you can actually do. And then even sometimes you can jog. And then based on your age and then your health at this condition, if you want to do the vigorous ones, then adding the intensity or some power to whatever you are doing can actually move the moderate exercises into becoming maybe a vigorous one. So for instance, if you are cycling, you can decide to cycle a little faster than you are doing, or even you can cycle on heels, and in doing so you are sort of like adding more energy to whatever you are doing. Then it moves it from the moderate to the vigorous exercise. And usually with the vigorous exercise, you don't need up to about 150 minutes in a week. At least it's 75 minutes within a week is enough.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for the education. It's getting very interesting, but we'll take a pause here. We'll go for a quick commercial break and we'll get right back. Please do stay tuned.
Calling all churches, join the National Bible Bee.
You will think that the Messiah appears only in the New Testament. But which text? In the Old Testament, the Anglican Church of Ghana.
Isaiah chapter 53, verse 4 to 7.
And that is correct. So 15 words are scattered on a crossword sheet. They would need to identify all the words within 3 minutes. Now, the person who finishes within the time first also win an extra 3 points.
Don't miss out on the opportunity to participate in the National Bible Bee. Register your church today and inspire the youth in your congregation to dive deep into God's Word. Register now and inspire the next generation. For more information, contact us at 0248 176916 or 0508 080774. Email nbbghana@gmail.com. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to make a difference in the lives of the youth within your church community. The National Bible Bee, implanting the living word through the written word.
As a small business owner, Metaisha Business Forum, our Hope Channel, it really helps me with my business.
Don't let your priorities be because obi eye bibinti. Also we share some wide. Why one kasa sawasa. So we jani niya we biani.
Okay.
Obi ani need so that ungo fa a problem ma.
In the first place, business a risk.
Okay.
It's just all about risk. Now pursue your business, so now you need you should be a risk taker.
Okay.
I would recommend it to you to Mesresa also Beshebi.
I believe you're enjoying our discussion on managing occupational and lifestyle diseases. So before we went on a break, Doc, I was on you. So that's a practice that's becoming very common lately. You go on social media, you see people smoking, not just cigarettes, but now shisha. A lot of people are doing that. So what are the health risks of that?
Thank you very much. As I said, they are all forms of smoking.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, throughout my 7 years in medicine, that's training to become a doctor. In all the books, I never came across anything that would state that if you smoke, reduce the rate at which you smoke. Because smoking is totally harmful to the health of an individual. But this is something that we still see these days, a lot of people doing that. And I think it has become something that we are preaching against. But when it comes to issues like this, it's very difficult to actually decide, because you say smoking is bad. And even if you pick the pack of cigarettes, it's boldly written on it that this smoke is harmful, yet people still go ahead to buy it. And then the producers are also still just producing it, knowing very well that this is what happens. And yet our country, we still import them. So these are things that we can't really delve into. But as we preach, whatever be the case, stop smoking.
Yeah, I think it's the same with alcohol.
Exactly.
It's becoming very, very common. So why is it very important to undergo regular health screening, and how often should we do that?
So screening, as Mr. Damwa mentioned, is actually very good. So most companies or organizations would have what we call pre-employment screening, and then sometimes when you go on leave and you're coming back, then they screen you again. That's the periodic screening, and then when you are leaving. So that becomes like a mandatory thing that the company would do. But we as the individual, we need to take our own health into our own hands. So we recommend, even if you are not sick, at least every quarter, you try as much as possible to visit the hospital and just run a few laps. Just walk in and say hello to your physician. It's sometimes heartwarming when you meet there's clients who are not sick. They are just passing by for a regular checkup. So at least we advise for everybody to at least every quarter. But there are some basic tests that you actually can do them very regularly, at least checking your blood pressures. As for that one, in as much as if you know you are within the high risk, then if possible you can check every day or even weekly. It's very important. But if you are not within the high risk category, at least occasionally just try as much as possible to check.
I think the pharmacies are doing very well. They have the equipment there, so you can just walk in.
So you can walk in and then you have your BP checked.
So I'll come back to Mr. Damwa.
Okay.
You mentioned some occupational diseases. Are there others that we should be aware of?
All right. So just as I rightly mentioned, occupational diseases are diseases that are directly related or linked to your profession or your work or your activity. And so let's say, for example, the noise-induced hearing loss I mentioned earlier has to do with our folks or our brothers and sisters and our mothers who are working at areas where there is so much noise. Mind you, the threshold for noise is 85 decibels. So we are saying that beyond that is too much for your ear, or it's too much for you to listen to those noise. Let's look at it in different angles. Those of us who normally, when we go to church, funerals, or any outdoor program, or even nice club, and we want to sit close to the speaker, just so we could hear the vibration, we could listen, hear the vibration, and enjoy and dance well. Those noises are totally beyond or way above the threshold that we are talking about. So our friends who are DJs, I don't know whether we should encourage ear plugs for them or I don't know how we can have that balance or sensitization for them. They normally have their ear plugs, or how do they even call it? Is it headset, that they listen to the song they want to play before they serve us. They have a taste of it before, which is more or less a cheat, but anyway, we'll give that privilege to the DJs. But beyond that, since they are consistently or constantly exposed to this very high noise, I think there should be some sort of regulation for them, or the DJs can be like 2 or 3 playing a particular show. So one comes for like 1 hour, plays at the higher noise, and then goes to the backstage or has a rest, and another DJ will come and take over. But of course, if my favorite DJ is playing, I would want him to finish throughout. But I think going forward, these are things that Safety Campaign Ghana, we can be collaborating with the Ghana music industry or even, the creative space, for us to proffer some solutions or some control measures for our DJs, because their noise in the clubhouses and all that are more than 85 decibels. Again, at the construction sites, those who are grinding the concrete mixers, you might say, well, I'm not into any construction, but we do mason jobs and all that. We have those who go to the fufu blending area to go, and these days people just go, the noise that is coming from there, if you are overly exposed to it for a period of time, you are at risk of noise-induced hearing loss. Another one is asbestosis. In some areas, those who manufacture ship, some construction industries, and these insulators that we have around, if you have a cable, the insulator around it, if you have a fridge, all the insulators around, you are exposed to asbestosis. It's a lung disease that happens to those who are particularly in that field. It's when they inhale the asbestos fiber. That is when they go to the asbestosis as well. It is one killer occupational disease that's got all the attention some years back. It's faded off, and now we are having reoccurring asbestosis. So maybe we need to give it a public health concern and probably look at it again. We have another one that happens in the mining industry, but this is related to coal mining. Those who mine coal, we call it black lung cancer, or the coal miner pneumoconiosis. I love that term. It has to do with you inhaling the coal dust. So these are typical occupational diseases that the everyday worker is exposed to. And look, with the safety practitioners, we are there to check some of these hazards, put in some control measures to either eliminate, our goal is to eliminate every hazard, because we believe that, look, the working environment can be safe for everyone. In cases where we cannot eliminate the hazard, we activate the remaining hierarchy of controls and probably reduce these very hazards or prevailing risks to acceptable limits. And the last one I'll talk about for the occupational disease, to make a form, a lead or cyanide or whichever for their processing, they should try as much as possible to use hand gloves so that they will not be at the risk of these hand infections and diseases and all that. Some of them have their nails coming off. I think maybe doctor will touch on that, and various skin rashes and all that as a result of the occupation that they are doing. So we spoke about noise-induced hearing loss 1. I spoke about black lung cancer 2. That is co-workers pneumoconiosis. Yeah. The third one I spoke about was the asbestosis, and I spoke about occupational dermatitis as the common occupational disease that we have.
Okay, so we're almost out of time, but you mentioned claims.
Yes.
What's the process of doing that for someone who has been harmed doing their work?
So I think there are several legal cases where employers were sent to court by employees who suffered 1 or 2 occupational diseases or even accidents at the work environment. But it all has to do with you, the employee. Do you even understand the procedure? Some employees, you ask them, have they given you PPE? They'll be like, yes, why didn't you use it? And my supervisor said this, and we wanted to finish the job fast and all that. The moment you tell us you wanted to finish the job fast, so it means you cut corners, you compromise on health and safety, you not get anything. So the procedure is for you to understand the job. If the job is too risky or there are so many hazards and risks associated with the job, make sure these risks and hazards are eliminated. If your line manager says he cannot eliminate or make the working environment safe for you, you have every right to raise the red flag. If you raise it and you are being forced to carry out the activity and something happens, you can easily take them on for your claim. And mind you, every worker is insured in one way or the other. Okay. Every worker is insured. And so it's just for you to speak to a occupational health and safety practitioner or a specialist who would also connect you to a lawyer who understands some of our regulations. For example, in the mining sector, we use LI 21A2, that's health, safety, and technical regulation. We also have the mining and mineral regulation for explosives, LI 2177. And we have the Factories, Offices, and Shop Act, I think Act 328 or 3271, one of them. All these are regulations that governs, of course, we have the EPA Act as well. So all these regulations, in some way or the other, streamline or outline certain occupational health and safety practices that employers are supposed to provide or ensure. And not forgetting the Labor Law 2003 Part XV or Part 15, which also outlines some occupational health and safety practices. So all these are legal or regulations that you can use to, pull your employer. You can take some big money, but your hands will be off. And then you now want to go and seek for, claims and all that. We don't want that thing. So make sure all that when you go to work, you take good care of yourself, you follow the health and safety procedures. I'm very passionate when I'm talking about some of these things, because your family is waiting for you, your wife is waiting for you, your kids are waiting for you, and there's nothing so, welcoming or loving. Child says, welcome home, mommy, or welcome home, daddy. Such a pleasant, sight to behold. We don't want to meet you at the hospital, so work safe when you go to the workplace. Yeah.
So in all this, which government authority regulates the health and safety of workers?
This issue, I know most of the safety practitioners watching will be like, are you going to talk about the law? Currently, there is no law in Ghana that governs occupational health and safety or manages occupational health and safety. So we rely on the various government agencies, like the EPA. They have their acts, which also outlines or subscribe to some occupational health and safety practices. We have Minerals Commission, like I mentioned, they are LI 21A2 and they are LI 2177. Factories, Offices, and Shop Act is also there. Even our Labor Law 2003, Part 15 also outlines some occupational health and safety measures for you. We are still working on the bill. I know there are a lot of safety guys or practitioners out there championing for the bill to be passed. It's been sitting in Parliament for over 20 years. And we are hoping that Dr. David Ako, who is currently the IOS Vice Chair, says activate 2028. He believes that by that year, it will be done. And GISEP, where I belong, Ghana Institute of Safety and Environmental Professionals, we're also championing for the, signing of this very bill into law, and then it could streamline some of the operations as far as health and safety is concerned in Ghana. But for now, we rely on the various government agencies and the power that has been given to them to, manage health and safety as well.
Right. Thank you. Doc, I think I'll come back to you. Lately, we're all on our phones, on some device or something else. It's become more of an addiction. What is the impact of that on our health, maybe now and also in the future?
Okay. Yes, that's very true. We spend so much time either just watching our phones, tablets, or even the televisions, which has various health and hazards to us. So actually, when it comes to screen time, most of them actually doesn't contribute to the inactive lifestyle that we actually live. So they can actually cause most of the lifestyle diseases I mentioned earlier on. But for the screen, it's something that's usually even the ophthalmologist will tell you that if the lights are too close to your eye, it can actually give you there's issues with sight and other things. And they even sometimes advise that if you're on a screen, maybe after some number of minutes, either 30 or 45 minutes, you actually pick a distance or an object beyond the screen, and then you focus your eyes on that particular object, like a brick from the screen. But we hardly do things like that. So we find ourselves mostly on our tablet. And usually, being a pediatrician, I get so passionate about our kids. And these days, that is what, in fact, parents do all the time. They buy these kid tablets for the kids, and all they do all the time is they are playing with the tablets. And I believe it's even causing a lot of behavioral and social issues with our kids these days. We find most of them coming up with this on the autism spectrum of diseases. They don't have that social interactions and all those things because they were brought up in a way that they are always looking at their tablet and things. And for kids, we usually advise not more than 2 hours a day screen time. And we even advise that you shouldn't keep let's say a TV or something in a child's room. So their room should have no TV. If they are using the tab, at least after maximum 2 hours, you take it away from them. And then they read their books and then play with their fellow kids in the compound. That is quite interesting than watching the screen almost all the time.
Now we don't have kids in the compound.
So all you need to do is to create, let's say, a safe environment for the child to play around, run around with toys and balls and all those things. It's actually better than the screen that they use almost all the time.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot today on health and safety. Safety men, thank you so much. So I'll take your final words to our viewers. I'll start with Mr. Damar.
All right, so anytime I get the opportunity to talk about health and safety, my final words are always safety slogans or chants that I give out to my listeners or my viewers. So this evening, I'll take the opportunity to give some 3 safety chants. And so the first one is the safety of one is the safety of all. I'll repeat it again. The safety of one is the safety of all. The next one is if safety is expensive, try an accident. If I'm saying safety is expensive, try an accident and see the ripple effect and the cost involved for you fixing that very thing. So if water was on the floor or a spillage and you failed to clean it, you will slip over it or on it, and then you might probably break your arm or your leg and you might go to the hospital. The cost involved as you picking just a mop stick to clean it off. And my last safety slogan would be the job will pay you, But the only thing that will take you home to meet your family and your loved ones is safety. So the job will pay you, but the only thing that will take you home to meet your loved ones is safety.
Right. Thank you so much. Doc, I'll come to you now.
Yes, thank you. So my final words, I think I have just two. So the first one is we should try as much as possible to owe our health. Let's make our health belong to us.
Yeah.
So we should go for regular medical checks. And the last is most often a lot of people tend to hide there's some illnesses in companies because they feel they will be sacked. So they tend to keep without letting anybody know. The reason for the safety officers is to be able to identify your loopholes or there's an ill health, and then change maybe there's a different tax for you. Yeah. So coming out with your issue would actually help you in managing it. So they would change, doesn't give you a different tax which will fit you perfectly. So we should try as much as possible not to hide medical and then health issues as well.
Right. Thank you so much. This has been very insightful and interesting. I believe our viewers have learned a lot and have enjoyed the show as well. Thank you so much for joining us. The safety men have said it all. Our health is our wealth, and we only have one health. So let's take charge of our health and ensure we are living not just long, but healthy lives as well. This has been the Consulting Room. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and have a good night.